I'll stand right here next to you, is that all right?
Might be easier if you come over this side. Moving this space.
Yeah, that's good. That's okay.
Kia ora koutou, ko Rachel Kelleher tukurunga. I'm one of the Deputy Controllers for Auckland Emergency Management. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for a quick update just on the current situation with the flooding that we're experiencing across Tamaki Makaurau. For this afternoon's update, I have with me Auckland Deputy Mayor Deasley Simpson, Auckland Transport's Stacey Vanderputten, who is the Executive General Manager of Safety, and from Fire and Emergency New Zealand, Brad Mosby, who is the on-call commander for Tamaki Makaurau. And of course, many of you will have seen and met before Georgina Griffiths, who's our Auckland-based meteorologist with the Met Service. So just a quick brief overview of the impact so far. So a severe thunderstorm watch and flooding event has been issued for Auckland. Met Service has issued an orange heavy rain warning and a severe thunderstorm warning for Auckland, including Aotea Great Barrier Island today, through until about 7 p.m. tonight. We have seen heavy downpours across the region already, and many places have seen rain rates of up to 30-35 mils within 1 hour, and in some cases slightly higher than that. We are expecting more rain to come through as the day progresses, potentially through until up to midnight, but as Georgina will talk to, the most severe time frame is probably through to about 7 p.m. tonight. Earlier today, we did issue an emergency management alert, an emergency mobile alert, to provide Aucklanders with information on where to seek help if they need it, and to also make sure people were aware of the situation out on the ground. As I've said, we've seen flooding across the region, and it's fairly widespread right throughout, not just in specific areas. We ask people to take extreme care while driving and delay trips if possible. Do not drive through floodwaters. Of course, if life or property is at risk, you should always phone 111. In the event that people need to evacuate their homes, we are opening shelters and civil defence centres in areas where they might be needed. Already, Te Manawa Library in Westgate is open, and full details will be uploaded to the Auckland Emergency Management website as new centres are stood up. In terms of building assessments, our teams are ready to respond in case any rapid building assessments need to be undertaken. And I'd just like to remind everyone to keep an eye on the weather forecast. Stay vigilant. We'll continue to provide further updates throughout the day. I'd now like to invite our Deputy Mayor, Deasley Simpson, up.
Thank you, Rachel, and kia ora. We've been here before, haven't we? But today's weather has been concerning both to me and the Mayor. I have been in regular communication with His Worship throughout the morning, and I have promised to keep him updated both this afternoon and through to this evening. As Rachel mentioned, we did send out an emergency alert earlier, and this was to give Aucklanders a heads up that we were concerned about the weather and tell them what to do should they be in trouble. As you are aware, the Mayor made the decision to declare a state of emergency at 12:59 p.m, following formal advice that this was an option. I want to stress that this declaration was a precautionary measure which lets you all know that we are taking this seriously, and we wished Aucklanders to take it seriously as well. It was a precaution to keep you safe. Because he is overseas, the Mayor also delegated to me his responsibilities and power until he arrives back in New Zealand, hopefully tonight. We're aware that there has been significant surface flooding in parts of the region, and there has been disruption to commuters. That's our key focus for us at the moment, and you'll be hearing from Stacey more on that later. Our key focus is to make sure we keep clear, accurate and timely advice to Aucklanders. As this is an emerging and evolving situation, I want to reiterate that people should stay updated with the latest messages from the Auckland Emergency Management, as well as keeping an eye on the weather updates from Met Service. Stay safe, Aucklanders. Please check in on whānau, family and friends, and remember, if you think your life is in danger, please call 111. Thank you. I'll now hand back to Rachel.
Kia ora, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll now invite Georgina Griffiths up to talk about the weather and just what we can expect to see over the next couple of hours. Thanks, Georgina.
Tēnā koutou katoa, we're back here again, Auckland, never mind. Met Service discussed this event yesterday and really did think this would be an impactful one because the region is so saturated after a very rough 5 months. Just to give you some clarity on that, Auckland region has received 90% of its annual normal rainfall in the first 1/3 of the year. Okay, so we're pretty soggy. We expected downpours and torrential rain to cross Auckland in a line this morning, and it did. We saw, or in fact almost every place saw rain rates, peak hourly rain rates of 30 to 35 millimetres an hour, downpours, which caused impacts. There are some regions under the severe thunderstorm line that had multiple warnings on it that saw 40 to 50 millimetres in 1 hour. That's torrential rain and always makes flooding and mess and problems for Aucklanders. That line has moved from the west of the region, so Henderson out west got it first. It's gone through central regions. It's now affecting Waiheke, Maraetai, East Auckland at the moment, before it's expected to head out into the Hauraki Gulf. Many of you who are in central and western parts of Auckland right now have seen a bit of a pause in the rainfall, or at least the intensities, and some may even be dry right now. Enjoy it while it lasts. We have a severe thunderstorm watch in place until 7 p.m. tonight. West Auckland, Karakari, Muriwai, Piha might clear as early as 5 p.m, and by 7 o'clock, hopefully that last of the rain band has moved through. Now the risk going forward for us is another burst of downpour, 25, 30, 35 mils an hour, just another little burst between now and 7 p.m. Let's call it 4 o'clock, let's call it commute time or pick up after school, of course it is. And not everyone will see the further downpour, but let me tell you, like we saw this morning, anything high intensity in those rain rates is causing those surface flooding, and so anything high intensity will cause a problem again later today. So nearly out of the woods, Auckland. Let's get through to 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock if you're out west, which is great. There is some more weather to come for Auckland tomorrow. It's showery and windy, southwest and cold. Eventually in the next couple of days, Thursday, Friday looks windy and cool, but not impactful. And then we actually see the first of a good looking high coming in for the region and some dry weather, which is great news. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And now to give an update just on the Fire and Emergency New Zealand response, I'll hand over to Brad Mosby. Brad, as I said, is the on-call commander for Tamaki Makaurau.
Kia ora koutou. Fire and Emergency has been responding to over 200 weather-related incidents in Auckland today. And that includes 135 between 12 o'clock and now. So these call-outs mostly include flooding that has entered properties. There has been some call-outs to slips, fallen trees, and the odd vehicle that's been trapped in floodwaters as well. We're expecting more weather-related call-outs as we move through the afternoon and into early evening. Our communication centre is triaging those call-outs and prioritising those that are of life risk and property risk first and foremost. I just want to commend, I suppose, the quick action of Auckland Emergency Management by bringing all our partner agencies together yesterday afternoon so we could start the planning process together in a coordinated manner. That meant that we were able to look at our resourcing across Tamaki Makaurau today, make sure we had those resources to give the community some confidence that we had all resources available if the weather event got any worse. So as of this afternoon, we do have the resources. We can give confidence to our communities that that we have those to respond to any emergencies as they come to hand, and if we do require any further resources such as USAR capabilities, then they are on standby as well if required. So please, just to reiterate to our community, the 111 system is there for you to use. Just bear in mind that we are getting a lot of call-outs, so please only call us if it's of life risk or your property's in danger. So those smaller flooding incidents in your basements and the like, please just hold off, and it may subside. And if it doesn't, then maybe give us a call once things die down a bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. And lastly, I'd like to bring up Stacey Vanderputten. Stacey is the Executive General Manager of Safety for Auckland Transport, just to give us an update on the roading situation.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou koutou. I mean, obviously the weather events have had a significant impact on our network. Throughout the day, we do see significant congestion at the moment. A lot of schools did close early, which has added obviously to the traffic that's trying to get to where they need to be. So we do ask everybody to plan your travel, drive with caution. There is surface flooding across the network right now, and whilst we do have this sort of pause right here, as Georgina said, there is more weather on the way. So please do keep off the roads if you can. If you do need to travel, make sure that you do so in mind and plan your journey appropriately. Public transport right now does have significant challenges. What we're seeing is that currently the train network is paused, and that means that no train lines are currently running out of Britomart. But there are trains running between Papakura and Otahuhu and Manukau and Otahuhu. Now, as the lines come back online, we'll be sending out communications so people know when they're up and running. Due to safety, obviously, when there is water on the tracks, it necessitates that we shut that down and find alternate travel. Given the delays across that network, that does mean there are significant delays in terms of trying to get people to where they need to be on public transport. The most recent information I have is that those that are really impacted right now on the North Shore are the NX1, the NX2, the 95 and the 97. In terms of that, we are seeing long queues, and we are deploying people as we can safely to help that queue management and make sure that people can get to where they need to be. We're obviously working very closely with Auckland Emergency Management and making sure we're sharing that timely information so we can get that out to our customers across the network. We have been preparing, of course, and so we've been working with Healthy Waters maintenance teams across Auckland and already responding to flooding and slip issues, particularly from those communities in the north and west that were most affected by the more recent weather events. Our existing slip sites across the network have been made as safe and secure as possible, and they will be continued to be monitored throughout the weather events that we're seeing today. And those hot spots in terms of across with drainage have been inspected and making sure that they're open and operating to their capacity. So key messages here is please plan your journey, only travel if you need to, and if you're using public transport, please use AT Mobile so you understand what journeys are operating and what delays there are that may impact your service. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks, Stacey. So that is now the end of our updates. So I'm happy to take any questions or help facilitate any responses to questions if you might have them.
How concerned are you about the weather and what's coming this afternoon?
Well, look, I think what we're seeing at the moment, certainly as Georgina has described, is rainfall rates that can be impactful, and of course that's the situation now out on the ground. In terms of comparison to the Auckland anniversary floods, they occurred after we'd had sort of 12 hours of cumulative rain and at rain rates of up to about 80 millimetres. So They are slightly different situations, but of course any rainfall that comes through in these sorts of amounts does have an impact, and so we're concerned that people out there will be experiencing that and are taking the steps needed to make sure that there's support for those communities by way of civil defence shelters or centres if they need them, and making sure people are getting the timely and up-to-date information.
Rachel, we know that we're expecting perhaps another downpour this afternoon. How concerned are you that that's going to happen in rush hour? I mean, we've already seen a number of crashes on the motorways today. Is that worrying?
Look, I think there's possibly a question for Stacey in terms of just how the network, the roading network will perform with that. I think my observation would be the weather is quite, Georgina framed it earlier to me as being wiggly, so we can expect the rain bands to come and go a wee bit, and the exact timing of that possibly will be a bit later in the afternoon for those further rain showers. Of course, a lot of commuters have already made the move back home, having seen what was happening out on the network. And so, our advice to people really is to just take care before travelling, check your routes, make sure that where you're going you understand what disruptions there are on the network and plan around that. For some people it might be better to travel while there's a break in the weather, for others it might be better just to pause and wait for that break to come. Stacey, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Traffic definitely is one of those things that are unpredictable, but what we have seen today is obviously people have listened to the advice, they've seen the weather coming in, and in many instances have made arrangements to go home early as it may be, or travel to where they need to be early. With that, a lot of schools also decided to close early, and so that's why we saw a lot of people on the network sort of midday going to pick up their children and the likes. But yeah, the key message is obviously travelling throughout the evening is the same. Please drive cautiously, plan your journey well ahead, and use the AT mobile application if you're using public transport so you know what's operating. We'll be sending out messages as they come to hand so people have the most relevant information in order to make their travel decisions on. Thank you.
Stacey, sorry, just one more question. What's happening with Britomart Station?
Britomart Station itself is currently open. And so the platform access and access to the platforms is currently closed because we do not have trains running in and out of there. The station itself is open, so people can obviously go and assess their travel needs and make alternative arrangements or keep dry, as the case may be, until those train services are updated and have an idea of when frequency will commence again.
Is there flooding in the station?
No, not as far as I'm aware. There's no flooding in the station. The issue today has been flooding on the tracks. In terms of that, and that's just due to the volume, and so as soon as it gets to that unsafe level where you have water coming over the tracks, they do need to down services. Yeah.
Just outside, and then even on the street, there's queues and queues of people waiting for buses. People have been told to go home, but they can't get home.
Yeah.
What's the advice?
Yeah, understand, absolutely, and I know it's really frustrating sort of waiting for a bus that's potentially, taking a really long time to come, and because buses are, in traffic too, they're experiencing the same sort of congestion and trying to get to where they need to be. The team are doing their best to make sure that they get to those priority spots and can get people on their way. The key is trying to get that traffic moving again so that they can get bus access and then get people where they need to be.
Do you have an update on the number of roads that are closed or partially closed?
Right now, in terms of that, I don't have those numbers on me in terms of that. It is being assessed right now. I mean, a lot of it's that surface flooding like we talked about, so obviously we don't encourage people to drive through floodwaters and to be cautious of that and make alternative plans. So as that information comes to hand, we'll be able to provide an updated information on our website with that, but right now it really is a congestion issue that we're seeing in terms of the earlier downpours we've had. Thank you.
Rachel, do you have any areas that you're concerned about, localised areas, if there's another big downpour this afternoon?
Well, certainly in terms of areas that have been affected already today, I did mention that we're seeing surface flooding, across many parts of the region, but the northern parts of Auckland, so Whangaparoa Peninsula northwards, certainly there's been some very heavy rainfall rates through parts of the northern part of the region. Also, some of our western communities, we've had reports of flooding in Mangere. Any of those areas receiving, additional rainfall, of course that could exacerbate what we're already seeing.
What about the West Coast
Yes, so again, surface reports of surface flooding, as you would expect in some of those low-lying areas, they are quite prone to coming up quickly when we do get heavy rainfall. So, certainly keeping an eye on those communities. Of course, we've got a number of properties out there that have been red placarded and also yellow placarded. And the important advice to those landowners is, if there's a red placard, of course, people need to be out of those properties. And if people have a yellow placard on their property, is to take absolute care to follow the instructions of that particular placard. A degree of conservatism has been built into that placarding system to make sure that, as we were heading into winter, where we would have more rainfall, that was certainly taken into account.
What about carrying reports of flooding there?
Yes, as noted, so some of those low-lying parts of Piha, for example, we have had reports of some surface flooding through there, and we're keeping an eye on those West Coast communities.
I just had a question for Brad. You reported you've had over 200 call-outs so far. How does it stack up against past weather events? Is this a lot or?
No, if we look back at the Auckland floods, we were over 2,000 over a short period of time, and it took us 24 hours to clear that backlog. So our control room's doing a really good job in triaging the calls at the moment, and they feel that they're on top of things. So compared to the other events, no, it's nothing compared to that. And we have the resources available in Auckland to manage the current state. Thanks.
Any last questions? Well, thank you. We'll leave it there. Just, I guess, a reminder to everyone to keep an eye on the Met Service forecasts, the Auckland Transport and Waka Kotahi updates in terms of sort of what's happening on the roading network, and for information around civil defence shelters and centres, Auckland Emergency Management's website page will have those as they become reopened, or become opened, I should say. So thank you everyone for coming along this afternoon, and as things change, we'll make sure that information is updated. Kia ora. Thank you.